So I've been doing some thinking lately on what are some things that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 can do to really improve the first one. The first game is very well rounded. It does a lot of things right. It gets a lot of its gameplay right, a lot of its story right. Some of its level design is lacking, and there are some other things too. But let's go ahead and go into 5 things that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 can improve over the first, or rather just things it can add. So the first thing, this is something that we see in the 2015 PSX gameplay trailer, and that is instead of having an ATB system, the game had a momentum system. Now I'm not saying do away with the ATB system in favor of the momentum system. The ATB system works very, very well, and I would hate to see such a well-made system go. What I am saying is that while the ATB system, the MP, and limit breaks and summons do give you plenty of fun things to juggle during combat, imagine if you had just one more thing, and you had a momentum system, which would give you exclusive abilities only allow when you had, plenty of momentum. I'll have the clips on screen now for what momentum systems did. Basically, instead of being able to use focus thrust through ATB or Braver, or like Barrett, instead of having fire in the hole as a limit break, he had it as a momentum ability. So I would really love it if we could see maybe this ability come into Part 2, and it could definitely work as just another bit of combat. You still have your ATB, you still have the MP, you still have limit breaks, you still have summons, but momentum is just another thing for you to juggle. And this is a second improvement over the first one. Bigger areas. Now we already do know this is going to kind of be in the game. We can guess it because from what they've said with Cloud running around in the wilderness and just how things expand so much after Midgar, we can definitely expect this. I plan to make a separate video on how far I think the game's going to go, but into the story, because it's obviously we're not going to go from right now to the end of the Northern Crater. In this next part, it's not going to happen. I'll make a video on how far I think it'll go because I've played 7 a couple times and I know a lot about some of the games, so I'll make sure to do a video on that. But I think this is going to be a pretty open game. Do I think this is going to be completely seamless open world like Final Fantasy 15? Probably not. I don't think you're going to get a seamless open world. I think you're going to get pretty big zones. They could definitely do seamless. Maybe have like one continent be seamless and the other be seamless. I'd be down with that if they do it right, but if not, I'm totally fine with just really huge zones, like I said before with Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, I want open areas. I want to be able to explore. Something I love a lot in some of the Final Fantasy games, and like 13 and after, or just all of them really, but especially in 13 and Grand Pulse and Lightning Returns in the Wildlands and Dead Dunes, and in 15's Lucis. I like to be able to explore. I like to be able to run around and get to see what all this world has to offer. And I really do want that in more Final Fantasies. So if I could get that in 7 Remake Part 2 or Final Fantasy 16, I'm very, very happy. So another improvement then on this game, and I think we all can agree on this one, air combat needs a serious revamp. And by revamp, I mean they actually need to do something with it this time, because in this game, they didn't even try. Cloud has his little rinky-dink 3-hit air combo that just repeats ad nauseum, and it just kind of auto-tracks. It's terrible. The only time air combat is even decent is when you're playing as Barrett or Aerith, because they don't have air combat. They just did the same thing on the ground. So, for sure, air combat needs to be touched up. They did improve on it in Intergrade. Yuffie's air combat was definitely the best of the bunch. But even then, it still wasn't that great, so I want to see a serious change on this. I'm not saying it needs to be like FF15, where you can fight pretty much any enemy in the air just as well as you could on the ground. It doesn't need to be that good, but I definitely do want to see a big improvement on air combat, or just anything at all with air combat. And another thing I think it can definitely improve upon from the first are the side quests. Now, some of the side quests in the game are pretty solid, namely the ones in the Wall Market chapter and in chapter 14. Those side quests are pretty solid. However, the ones in chapter 3 and in chapter 7, I believe it is, or no, 8, chapter 8, are painful to get through. I dread doing them every single time. Thankfully, I don't have to because I played the game enough that I just have a save file. But those 2 chapters have some terrible side quests. Again, the Wall Market ones are great, and the Chapter 14 ones are great, but those are absolutely miserable. I cannot stand those side quests. It is just either fetch quests or just really boring stuff. And not to mention, like, some of the NPCs, especially the kids, have like it feels like almost intentionally bad voice acting, you know.
Acting.
But that's a nitpick. But I do just want better side quests, right? I'll go ahead and say right now, the main thing I want on this list though is open world. So maybe you can say, oh wow, that if that's what's really important to you, then wow, you shouldn't play this game. People say dumb stuff like that all the time, but it's just what I like, right? I like to be able to explore my Final Fantasy games. But and the last thing on this list is, this is a nitpick for sure, but it's something that did really annoy me a little in the first game. Summon damage. Now, summons ultimate attacks do damage, right? That is what you summon them for. You summon Ifrit so he can use Hellfire. You summon Shiva so she can use Diamond Dust. And you especially summon Bahamut so he can use Mega Flare. You don't summon any of them to do anything else. You don't summon them to use their abilities. You don't summon them for them to fight on their own. They are absolutely useless outside of their main abilities. And even their main abilities, they hit about as hard as a Limit Break do, as a level 1 Limit Break, except for Bahamut. Mega Flare is definitely a cut above the rest. But for sure, I want to see a big buff in summon damage. I also want to see more abilities. I want to see you be able to have more control of the summons. I'm not saying like, oh, you should be able to tag out to Bahamut if you summon him, but I feel like you need to have more to do, because the summons in this game, they feel too automated and don't feel good enough, right? The summons are not that bad for sure, but like they're fine. They're better than like the Gestalts in what are they called, Eidolons or whatever in Final Fantasy 13. They're better than those, but even still, it's definitely not great. I would love to see a big damage buff to them, some more abilities, just some stuff to make them more unique. Yeah, that has been 5 quick things I think 7 Remake Part 2 can improve on. A little bit shorter video this time, because I'm still getting the lay of the land with this new mic, and I just didn't have a ton to talk about here. I could go in depth more with the momentum system and how I think they could make it work, with the abilities and such, but I think at this point, y'all kind of get it, The more momentum you have in combat, the more you're staying on an enemy and everything like that, the more abilities you get. And some of these abilities don't all have to be like directly combat related. Like, you do enough of you get enough momentum and you can use like Prey, right? Maybe if you turn Prey instead of being an ATB ability, you can set it in like the battle settings, like where you set your shortcuts. You can set your momentum ability, and you have 1 of each or 2 of each, and you can set it to do different things. Like if you fill 1 momentum bar, you use 1 ability, a tier 1 ability, and if you use 2, you use a tier 2 ability. That could work really well for the momentum system, and I would love to see that come into the next game. I don't expect a ton of like massive combat overhauls, except for air combat and maybe 1 or 2 other things, because I don't think they want to change too much. What they have isn't broken, so they're not going to try and fix it for sure, and I don't blame them. But yeah, that'll do it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know some things you think 7 Remake Part 2 can improve upon. How is my new microphone? I really like it so far. I've tested it with some stuff. And yeah. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe. My name is Carmen, but I go by Ellism on YouTube. And yeah, that'll do it. Y'all take it easy.